how hard it gets. As long as God has given you an idea, a vision, it will surely come to pass. So I have a wonderful guest here who is going to be sharing his story, a story of inspiration. Yes, a story of persistence. And I'm really glad to have him. So we have Barnabas here. The interesting thing is this: I've known Barnabas for a very long time. Story is quite inspiring. And the interesting thing is this is just one aspect of his inspiring story that he's sharing with us today. Yes, so I would like you, Barnabas, to introduce yourself. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much for choosing to come here. I know your schedule is tight, but thank you. You're welcome.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this podcast today.
Great.
My name is Barnabas, and just as you've said, I think I've known you for over 15 years. Almost about 15 years or thereabouts. So, my name is Barnabas. I'm a husband, a father, a photographer, and I'm in business analysis, right? So most importantly, I'm born again Christian.
Interestingly, right, his wife was here on this program last year. Yes, to share their journey of how they waited to have their son. Their stories, they have a lot of stories of faith, that would just make you believe that God is real if you can just hold on and be patient. Yeah, so I wanted you to share something quite interesting. Like, tell us about your upbringing, because I know you had a very interesting upbringing. So I just wanted to share a little bit about your upbringing and how your background also shaped your life. I know a little bit about your parents, so I just wanted to just give us that background.
Okay. So I'm raised, I'm 3 of 6. I'm number 3 of 6. Graduated in 2005. I think I had an amazing background. I mean, my results were amazing. So I had the required 5 credits in English and math. I had 221 points with my JAM. That's the post-UME exam. And I wanted to go to University of Maiduguri, but for some unknown reason, I didn't get admission. People who had less scores than I did actually got into the university, but I was never admitted into the university. So after my secondary school, which is my high school, I went to SPI, which is State Polytechnic, Yola, in Adamawa State, Nigeria. So I spent a year and I moved. There's a program called IJMB, which was like a preparatory program that gets you into a second year in the university. So I started that program, but while I was doing that program, I wrote JAM again, and I got 212 points with a cutoff of 160 or there, but I got like 73 points, more than what was required. So because I was so certain that I was going to get into the university, I left that polytechnic, I left the SPI, and moved to the University of Maiduguri in hopes that I would just get admitted and start school. Got there, I didn't get admission for the second straight year. Yes, I was so disappointed. I mean, I felt I should have just stayed in the polytechnic to get into the second year and everything, but nothing happened. And that was how I started a remedial program in the University of Maiduguri. Now, it was not what I wanted. At this point, my mates were going to the third year in the university, and I was starting from the pre-degree program, which is in North America is called the foundational or preparatory class towards the university. I was not happy about it, but I figured, you know what, let me just do it. Now, in the midst of all of these things were happening, I had an uncle who passed in 2020. He just came to the house. I was like, you know what, there is an opportunity called Canada. Who do you want to go to Canada? But my dad, being a very conservative person, wanted my big brother to go to Canada. But at this point, my big brother was already in his final year. My older sister was in her second year. That one guy who was so disappointed that was hoping to be in his second year at that point was me, and I didn't have school. So I was not in school. So I was just doing the preparatory class. So my dad reluctantly suggested that I should be part of that program. Reluctantly. And he didn't want it. The reason he didn't want it was because he was like, you know what? I want to prep my first son. Should I die, in case I pass, he should be able to take care of the family. But the first guy, who was your colleague, was already in his final year. So there was no way for him to leave the final year and come back and move to Canada. My sister was in her second year. I think she was in her third year also. There was no way for her to leave her third year and come to Canada. So that guy that did not have anything was the one that was selected.
Joseph.
Yes. So that was how I found myself here. But then I also he was like, you know, just come. He was not comfortable. He was not happy. But that was how the process started. So if not because of the disappointment I had with school, I wouldn't have the chance to come and study in Canada. So that was how it happened. That was the miracle behind me coming to Canada and everything.
So no, but you know something. There's something very foundational in this thing. I never knew that you're going to take me in this direction. Like what you just said now, I know nothing about this background. You know, and it just tells something about the irony of life. You know, the irony of life. It's not always that perfect picture that we see. It's always imperfect puzzles, imperfect piece of puzzles that come together to make the picture. Like hearing this background, I'm just surprised at your story.
Yeah, so whenever I talk to, because I've always told my wife, the truth is I've always told my wife that she's the best thing that's happened to me. But sometimes I flip it and tell her, okay, you know what? Coming to Canada is the best thing that happened to me. One, because if I was not here, first, I wouldn't have been able to be formed in the way I was to be able to meet you and be your spec. Right? Then the second option again is, you know, this is where the Bible says everything works together for good for those who love Him, right? And there is a group called Rastaflat. They sang a song called "God Bless the Broken Roots," right? So if you listen to the song, you see that okay, even though it's a love song about how things did not just work for them, but they were happy that things didn't work because things not working gave them what was even good, right? And that is the reference that Ravi Zacharias actually made. He was like, when God does not give you what you want, it's because He has something better for you. Now, the whole time, the whole dream, the whole thing I wanted was to go to the University of Maiduguri, study geography, then join the Nigerian Navy. That was the dream. That was what I wanted. But then, as those things didn't work, it was just so disappointing. And those disappointments have gone into several aspects of my life. Right? Like becoming a photographer. I didn't want to become a photographer like that. I love photography. I didn't want to become a photographer. But then because of the disappointment, I found myself a photographer.
Wow. Thank you for just throwing light into some of your details, because there's one thing I always wondered, right? I always wonder about people who persist on something, who will put their mind on something and insist that they want that result, and they will do anything. They are patient. They would painstakingly hold on to it. And the one thing I've observed in most people that have that particular strength and will, you will realize that they have a background of disappointment. They've been able to go through many disappointments, whereby those disappointments built them and gave them, mental strength. So when there's a vision before them, they just hold on to it. But I'm not going to be ahead of myself, right? So another thing I also wanted to ask you, right, because that's what this whole conversation is about. What inspired your relocation to Canada? Because another background of the story is, okay, yes, you went to Canada and you got the degree, right? Yes. I wanted to know what was the inspiration, if you can walk us through your journey, right? What happened after your first trip to Canada to study, right? And then what happened after that? You came back to Nigeria, and then you had this strong inspiration to go back. I just want you to walk me through that journey. What inspired you? What gave you that impression that this is something that God wants for me and my family?
All right, the process actually started in 2016. For me to relocate here, it started in 2016. But, some things didn't work out. I needed to do other things. So, at the time I left Nigeria in 2008, I was already in my second year. I think, yeah, so I just started my second year in University of Maiduguri, right? Now, at first I was denied the visa, then some things were not, I didn't have some things that were required, we were almost losing hope, then it happened, right? And I came here. Now, I was here in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. So the first time I went back to Nigeria was 2011. My sister was getting married, so I went back to Nigeria, and that was how I found my wife today. Right now, we have been classmates from primary school, but we lost touch. I didn't see her for so long until I saw her in 2011, and something just started from there. Now, after I met her, I started coming back to Nigeria virtually every 8 months just to come and see her. This was Nigeria that I never came to. My heart was never in Nigeria. But I started going every at least once in a year, right? Now, after that, what happened was this. I came back, I graduated in 2012. Right, though the graduation was in 2013, started working, but I had this glamorous idea at that point, and the idea was, since I had a Canadian degree, I wanted to do my master's in the UK, and from there I would just go back to Nigeria, get married, and then come back to Canada. So this was the plan. I had like a 13-month plan. While I was working here in Calgary, everything was going well. I applied for my visa, resigned my job, because my hope was I was going to just go to the UK and then come back here. But after I resigned, came back to Nigeria, I didn't get the visa. I got denied. I got denied the visa for two reasons. One, it was a period. Abdul Mutala, the guy that wanted to blow up the American plane, had done that thing, so Nigeria was blacklisted. And secondly, that you needed to have money in your account for 28 days. Within those 28 days, my dad touched part of the money and returned it the next day, so I was denied the visa. So here I was, without a job, without the visa, and nothing worked. I was just confused. I didn't even know how to even go back to the job and ask them to give me the job and all that. I had ended my lease, and I discussed with my brother. Now, the whole time my dad wanted me to come back to Nigeria and do the NYSC program. That's the National Youth Service Corps. He wanted me to come back and do that, but I never wanted it. In fact, what he told me, he sincerely told me his desire was for me to do NYSC, but I didn't like the idea. But then my big brother, Nanusa, that was like, you know what? Why don't you just come back home? Do this. I refused. I was like, I was not going to go back to Nigeria. Then he said something that was profound. He said, my dad has never forced us to do anything. He can only advise us, right? He was like, this guy has never asked us for anything. He has never even asked you for anything. The only thing he has ever asked you for is to come back and do NYSC. Why don't you just come back home to the NYSC? While you're doing the NYSC, you can actually work on your relationship with your wife, and then you can get married and go back to Nigeria. Oh yeah, that's a good one. So the thing that caught my attention was that I just come and work on my relationship with my wife, right? With my now wife. So I agreed. Packed my things, went back to Nigeria. But I arrived in Nigeria on the 25th of October. Mobilization had ended on the 23rd of October. So I had to wait, and during that time we just had the first batch and the second batch. So when I came, mobilization had ended in October 22nd. I arrived on October 25th. So I had no other option than for me to wait until next year, March. So I had November, December, January, February, March. So I was in Nigeria for 6 months. Now, when you graduate from Canada, from a university in Canada, you have 3 years work visa. I had exhausted like 8 months before I went back to Nigeria out of the 3 years. So when I arrived in Nigeria, I had to wait for 6 months before I could start the NYSC program. So just imagine 6 months plus 1 year, which is about 18 months. So 18 months plus 8 months is just about 20. So I had 36 months, but I'd exhausted like 27 months already in Nigeria. In fact, I got married. I was a core member. Got married. 11 days after I got married, I came back to Canada. I arrived Canada. Canada was in recession 2015. That was when the oil price went down. Canada was in recession. February, March, April, May, June, there were no jobs in Calgary. I mean, at one point, I was partying with my friend, and then at one point, I would just go out to those menial jobs, park darts, and then get paid with pay slips of $30, $40. There were no jobs. Got frustrated, really, really frustrated. But eventually, what happened was, I got a job in the warehouse. At the end of the day, I got really frustrated. Now, I had a pastor, a Nigerian pastor, his name is Pastor Anayo, who is so well, he's so connected, he knows people from everywhere. Pastor Anayo will collect my resume, help me edit my resume, he will send my resume to his friends. I will actually get calls for interview. But I had a problem. I had less than 6 months. At this point, I had less than 6 months on my visa. So they'll just ask you, hey Barnabas, what happens when your visa expires? So not everybody is willing to give you a job that will end up sponsoring your visa and everything. So I made a decision. I was like, you know what, people, I'm coming back home. We are going to work through the process together and we'll come back to Canada within a year or two at most. So she was like, you know what, since my decision, I just come back home. I packed my things in December of 2015, came to Nigeria 6th of December. My visa was expiring 26th of March 2026. So I came back to Nigeria. And well, it was supposed to be, you had I had my savings. And not only did I have the savings, I also had what that thing called, I was already into photography. So I told myself, come back to Nigeria in case you don't get a job. Work on your photography business and you'll be fine. So that was the idea. Packed up my things, came back to Nigeria. Some of my dad's friends promised they were going to get me jobs. Mr. Carl also tried to help me get me a job at the bank. I had expectations that I was going to get a job, serious expectations. In fact, at that point, even the deputy governor asked me to go and meet the VC of Taraba State University for a job. But I came back to Nigeria, there were no jobs. I did everything I could. I mean, it was glaring that people were recommending me for jobs, but jobs never came. So that was how I picked photography. Now, one thing I understand about this whole, I'm sorry, I've gone different stories. One thing I understand, and one thing I was happy with this was the fact that at this point, I started photographing, and my dad did not have an idea of how costly the school would be in Canada. Because, there was this premise that to come to Canada, when you start, after 1 year, the boys will start taking care of themselves, they can even work and pay their school fees and everything, but that wasn't the case. So at this point, my dad had sacrificed. I remember vividly, sometimes instead of him taking the plane to Abuja for Federation account meeting, he would just go by road, his Federation account allowances, send them to me. I knew that guy sacrificed a lot. I was in the know that he sacrificed. So, I mean, there was a time he told me, Barnabas, I've never driven a brand new car because of you, because of your school, because everything that he has is towards my school. So I can just get a chunk of money that takes care of him for the next 6 months, because of how difficult it was, because he didn't have an idea of how expensive it was going to be. So I knew my dad's sacrifice, and I told myself something. I was like, you know what? Every father wants his son to be better than him, and the way my dad has sacrificed for me, if I don't do the same thing for my kids, I'm going to be a failure. So I made up my mind. We didn't even have kids then, but I was making a plan in such a way, or we were making a plan in such a way that we wanted to ensure that we give our kids the best that out of what our parents did. We figured that we have to do the same thing for our nephew, our nieces, and for our kids. So that was what I kept pushing. But then the reality dawned on me. I did IELTS in June of 2015. I missed.
Okay.
I mean,
can you tell us what IELTS is for someone that doesn't know?
Right. So so I started planning to come back to Nigeria now, and in the course of planning for the Canadian immigration system, you have to get certain requirements. You have to get proof of funds, work experience, educational qualification, language proficiency, and all of those. So I had virtually all the experiences, all the things, the requirements that were needed. What I needed to do was to do the IELTS. So when I was in Nigeria, when I was in Canada, I did the IELTS is International English Language Testing System. So International English Language Testing System, which is IELTS or IELTS. So while I was in Canada, I did the SOLPI, which is the Canadian equivalence of the IELTS. I passed, but I didn't have the work experience. So at this point, when I went back to Nigeria, I did the IELTS. The first time, studied hard, planned for it. When I wrote the IELTS, but I failed. I remember the result. I got 9 in listening. I did the second time. I passed the listening. For the first time, I passed the reading, I passed the speaking, I passed the listening. The speaking, reading, and writing, but I got 6 in listening. So I failed. I needed to pass all at the same time. I started writing the IELTS. I wrote the first time, I wrote the second time, I wrote the third time, I wrote the fourth time, I wrote the fifth time. Now, all these times I was writing this IELTS, I kept failing the reading because the reading was a challenge. I mean, I've always known that it has been a challenge for me. So I would go and study, I would fail. And to give an idea of how this was, I traveled from Taraba to Abuja, which is about 500 kilometers away. Sometimes 12 hours, sometimes 13 hours. Other times our car gets spoiled on the road. So I've done that up to 5 times. I was becoming worried. My people started questioning, are you sure it's the will of God for you to come to Canada? Are you really sure it's the will of God? I mean, my mom told me, because at this point, I was already doing well in photography. But my mom was like, are you sure it's God that wants you to come? I was like, yeah, it's God. So I didn't care, I just kept writing. It got to the point, I wrote IELTS 16 times, 1-6. Yes.
6 times.
I wrote IELTS 16 times.
1-6.
1-6.
So you wrote, I just want to highlight this for people that don't understand. So you wrote the preparatory exam that will qualify you to go to Canada and give you...
Apply for permanent residency.
Okay,
yes.
Sorry, to apply for permanent residence in Canada, you wrote that exam 16 times. I want you to get that. 1-6.
I wrote that exam 16 times in the course of 9 years.
16 times in the course of 9 years, and you did not give up.
Okay, wow. It got to a point because I'm a very stubborn person. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a calm person, but I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn in the sense that if I don't want to do anything, nobody can force me to do anything. If I want to do anything, if I don't want to do, nobody can force me to do. If I want to do, nobody can stop me from not doing that thing. So I'm this determined and stubborn. So when this thing happened, something, I just told my wife something. I was like, you know what? The way this IELTS has become, even if I change my mind not to go to Canada, I must pass this IELTS so that I can show my son that I have done something and failed, but eventually passed. I mean, I forgot I should have been able. I think I had it. So that was how I told my wife. I was like, you know what, babe, I'm sorry. I will tell you the truth. Even if today I make up my mind that I don't want to go to Canada, I must pass this IELTS so that I can show my son that there is something that I have done, failed, but succeeded. It became a battle. It became a serious battle. I mean, I will go and write this IELTS, and then it became expensive. It became expensive and difficult. Yes. So these are the results. So this was the one. Sorry. So 1. So I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
do not
8,
give up. Anybody
9,
listening, please don't
10,
give up.
11, 12,
Wow.
13, 14, 14. Okay, I counted this thing 14. I don't know where the other one
Yeah,
was.
you don't have to worry about the others, but I'm just inspired.
I wrote the IELTS 16 times. I got to a point that when I finished writing the exam, my wife will be the one that will cry. She will cry. And it wasn't like I had money in abundance, right? I had friends. I was like, you know what, hey, borrow me, I beg. Because I started IELTS, it was 63,000 naira. It went to 68. It went to 72. It went to 75,000. It went to 82,000. It went to 85,000. And I eventually passed the IELTS when it was 87,000 in the course of 9 years.
So you passed it the 16th time.
I passed it the 16th time. Let me tell you how I passed this IELTS. So when I was writing the IELTS, it got to a point that I would want to finish covering the wedding. I will save money. I will keep money for 2 IELTS. If I don't pass this one, I will use this money and do the other one. That was it. So, we prayed, we fasted, we did everything. IELTS will not work. IELTS test will not work. So eventually, and in 2020, I got to understand that people can do racket and get the IELTS. I got to understand that. But I told myself, anything that will not glorify God, I will not do it. Right? And so what happened eventually was, on the last day I wrote IELTS, I was to write the IELTS, which was like 2023 in June. I was on my way to travel. We kept our son with his maternal grandma. On the day I was to travel, I fell ill. I was sick.
That's the 16th time.
The last time. And my wife, it was the wedding season, so I was busy taking pictures for people's events and everything, so I didn't even have the chance to study. My wife had, because she does food business, so she was delivering food for an event for I think 600 people or so. She was busy making food. I was sick. I was like, you know what, since this is the case, we left Taraba. Now, usually we leave Taraba in Nigeria in the morning around 6, around 7, and arrive sometimes around 10, sometimes around 11. So, PM, right? So, this day, because she was doing the food business, I was not feeling too well. We left Taraba State on around 2 o'clock PM to go to Abuja. Now, I used to have this car 406 that was always developing issues. I mean, every time I'm traveling with that vehicle, it's either on my way it gets spoiled, and then we get it fixed and arrive late, or if it takes me to Abuja successfully, on our way back something happens. I mean, I've never had a situation where I would travel back and forth without getting to fix the car. But I remember when we were leaving Jalingo last in Nigeria now, I did one prayer. I was like, God, help us. Now, the terrain we were driving on, is from Taraba. We go through Okari and then go through Ibi. So kidnappings were rampant on that road.
Yes.
Like
kidnapping. Oh my goodness.
Were normal. So
terrible.
We didn't tell anyone we were traveling. I mean, my parents wouldn't care. I mean, they will not. They don't get. Not that they wouldn't care, but they don't get worried for me to see or for our siblings to see. So it was when we were leaving. My wife told her big brother, we are traveling. Why are you going to Bani? She was like, we are going to Abuja. Around 2 o'clock? Yes. Are you sure? He was visibly not comfortable. I was carrying his younger sister on that terrain when I got fell, and as we sat up, I was like, God, please, God help me. Now, the reason I talk about this, God help me, is whenever I listen to, I listen to a lot of reels, and there is one that was profound to me by late Bishop Benson Dahusa, that when you are in difficulty, say, God help me, and everything. So this was the point. The only prayer I could utter in my mouth is, God help us. My wife on the other hand, God please help us, God please help us. You know what, we drove. For the first time, we arrived Okari around 7 o'clock. We drove on a lonely road like this. I think we only saw 2 bikes and 1 car on a lonely road for 3 hours from Ibi until we went to Panda. I don't know if you know that. It was a lonely road. For the first time, the car did not spoil. My wife was not happy. I was not comfortable. I mean, I was not worried about armed robbery or anything, but my problem is this car has a history of always either getting overheated or the belt will cut or something will happen. My problem is if this car right now spoils, how will I even go and look for a mechanic around 9 p.m. or 10? Will I leave my wife to go and look for a mechanic and there are no vehicles paying? I was like, you know what?
Oh my goodness, I'm scared listening to you, but thank God. Thank God.
That was how we entered the road for the first time. Now, there is one part that I've left. I'm the kind of person that I would leave Jalingo because I was, for the most part of it, I would do the normal work and I would do the photography, right? I can leave, just get some permission and everything. I can leave Jalingo, so Abuja for the IEL test. I can leave 4 days prior or 1 week prior just to go and sit down and study. I mean, yeah, I can tell you, I know the stories from IELTS 1 until IELTS 14. I think at that point it was IELTS 14. I know them. I mean, sometimes when you're trying to like do the questions and answers, what happens is, before you even do, you know the answer because I got used to doing the practice exam when I was doing online. There is this JIEL test, there is all those IEL tests, even paid money to be taught IEL tests. There was this guy, Mr. Chris. We did a preparatory class. I paid $150 for myself and my wife. We paid money for IEL tests. We paid subscription for IEL test Advantage. We did JIEL tests, but I will not pass that reading. But when it got to that 18, that the 9th and the 10th time, I started passing the reading, but I will always get 7.5 in the listening. So if I get the reading, I'll get the 7.5 in the listening. If I get after we prayed this prayer, we slept in Lafia. We arrived in Lafia around 12 o'clock. Slept in Lafia. The next morning, we went to Abuja and went straight for the speaking test. And I can tell you today, we only practiced with my wife for about 30 minutes for the whole exam, and it was the best exam we ever got. Now, as I did this 13 times, my wife did this 3 times, right? I did this 13 times, she did it 3 times, and the best result we've ever gotten was from that result that we didn't do anything towards. We didn't study, I was sick and I was driving and I was tired, she was tired, that was how God just did it. We got the best IEL test. I got 8.5/9 in the level in reading. That was how God did it for us, right? Now, this is I read that sometimes when we're asking God to do something, maybe we want this or this, we want 2 things. Sometimes when we're asking God to do something, we start leaning towards what we want instead of staying neutral. So I've actually leaned towards, God, I want to come to Canada. It was a difficult thing for me because I remember when I was in school, my dad would spend at least $15,000 per semester because my classes were like 1,600. I do 5. I did 5. It appeared as if it was not the will of God, but to be honest, I know it is the will of God. Because as this thing happened, in the process I learned a lot of things. In the process I knew people. In the process I had contracts. Because I with the photography business, I've met every important person in Caribbean. I mean, life is what happens to you when you are busy making other plans. My plan was to come to Canada, to Nigeria, go back after 2 years. It took me 10 years, or 9 years. It took me 9 years. And in the course of 9 years, I have learned to be a better person. I have learned to be a better photographer. I've told people that there is this song by Jay-Z and Alicia Keys that if you make it in New York, you can make it everywhere. And I've always told my friends that if I made it in Taraba, I can make it anywhere. So that's how the journey has been. I've spoken so long about it.
Wow.
That has been the journey for me.
Yeah, no, I allowed you because I just wanted you to just go ahead and share. Yes. One thing I was just thinking about, though you said a little bit about it, is the fact that in all these, did you felt that God was speaking to you, right? Or it was just your mind?
I had a strong conviction I had a strong conviction. Now, this wouldn't happen if you don't have a supportive partner, right? So, I mean, my wife will cry. My wife has been, she has been deprived of anything good. Have you had the situation that you can even go and work and make like 1 million or 2 million naira and then carry 1 million naira and keep it aside for IELTS? It got to a point that she was like, you know what, babe, why won't you just use one of these IELTS money and sow in someone's life? I was like, baby, it's something that I do, I give. But at that point, I did not have that conviction to do that. I was like, no, my heart is not telling me to do that. It's strong emotion, and I prayed to God, this is what I want. I will tell you that it was a strong conviction that I had, that this was the will of God for me.
So it was a strong conviction. It was your conviction that just kept you to keep trying and trying and trying, despite all the failures.
Yes, but the 7th and the 8th time, it was my ego. The 7th, when I did the 7th, I helped the 7 times. I did the 8th time. It became the thing of ego. I told myself, you know what? And then I was not looking at any other thing. Some people were like, can you try Australia? Can you try UK? I don't like UK too. I was like, no, if it's not Canada, I will live in this country.
Your heart was just in that country. Yes. I see. And God is faithful. God is faithful. Sometimes He just ensures that He grants us the desires of our hearts. That's just one thing also. God grants us the desires of our heart. I'm just thinking about someone who may have written so many exams or trying something and they've tried again and again and again and again. God is faithful. God is faithful. Yeah. The blessings are, I remember this part of the Bible in Luke where, I'll just paraphrase, where Jesus Christ was talking about the woman who is asking a particular wicked judge again and again and again and again and again. And Jesus Christ said that the wicked judge will say that, I need to help this woman, because if I don't know what she'll come and do to me. And then just for them to say that God is not even a wicked judge. So imagine you asking again and again and again, so that's persistence, right? This is the story of the church. This is the story of faith.
After I passed the IELTS, yes, we got the PR within 10 months. Less than 10 months. Mm-hmm. Less than 10 months.
Wow.
We got the PR.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And then, during this time, God has a way of doing these things, right? During this time, I started building my photography business more, right? I did good contracts. When I tell you I did good contracts, I did. And then God has also placed people strategically in my life. There is one guy, his name was Mehanchi, Samaila Mehanchi. He passed last 2 years. He was someone that God just used like this to raise me. He was like, you know what, Abokina, how are you? What do you want? For your friend to call you, what do you want? I told him, what I told him was impossible. I thought it was impossible because at this point I had through photography, I was able to meet a lot of people, speakers, deputy governor, SSG, all of those people. I made this request, and you're like, you know what? This person that you are asking help from is a difficult person. I cannot help you. I'm sorry. I will help you from my own end, but I cannot help you. And this, my friend, I think at this point he was even 27, was the one that just helped with that. So I was able to build a business that had about 9 employees. I still have the business right now that has 3 employees, because those were just apprentices and everything, but I have constant people on the payroll, about 3 photographers that I work with right now. Now, while I was waiting for that, I was also working on myself. I was also building myself. I was also developing other areas of my life, and that has been God, right? So that is just to tell you that God was trying to make me to be mature in a certain area of my life to be able to keep up with what is happening here. And when we got here, it was favor. It was favor. It was favor all through things that we did not imagine. I came to this country, my friends rallied and raised over $3,000. Oh, you know what? Here's 3,000. One other two, or this other guy told me, here's a house. One other guy called me. He was like, the day I came on, he went and bought the vehicle. I was like, you know what? Here's this vehicle. Keep using until you get yours. So this was how that when that hurdle I passed that hurdle, or we passed that hurdle, because if my wife wasn't supportive, there is a way she would just turn her face and would not even do anything, right? And that was how God has been so faithful to us. So faithful.
Wow. Wow. There are so many things you said that I just wanted to just summarize for anyone that is just trying to get what you said. The fact that, a lot of times in that waiting season, in that season of challenge, there are so many things that you would learn. And I'm glad that you took that away from that season. Because a lot of times people would be burdened by their expectations, overwhelmed by their expectations that is yet to come to pass, that they are unable to be fruitful in that season. But you were able to be fruitful in that season of waiting. Despite all the challenges, despite the failures, you still leveraged on it to be fruitful, to do things, and you achieved a lot. And I had a conversation with someone, I think last week, where I was telling the person that a lot of times delays, failures, they are only like a pulley whereby it seems as if they are taking you down, but they are only taking you down so you go much higher. They are only taking you down so you go deeper. That when you're going higher, the limit is higher than someone who just gradually walked and got everything. And that's what your story is about. That's what your story is about. I want you to just talk to someone who is waiting, who has failed an exam again and again and again, who is at the verge of just giving up, who is disappointed and overwhelmed. What is in your heart, what is in your spirit to say to that person right now?
Well, I'm still in the waiting season. And the last time I spoke to my wife, we have a child, he's 5 years old. So once in a while, he will come to us. He wants a baby brother, he wants a baby sister. We're still waiting. We've moved here exactly 8 months ago. We are still waiting, for the jobs and everything. But then the thing is, don't give up. The only thing, I think the Bible says in John 11 also, that in this life you face tribulation, but be of good cheer, because I have overcome the world, right? Just be cheerful. Yeah, just stay there. Because there's another thing again is, there was this feeling I had when I passed our IELTS. And when I did, I got to understand that it was not, and this is what the Bible also says, it's not he that willeth, but he that God decides to show mercy on, right? Because just imagine, how would I just pass our IELTS without studying for it? Without studying. Some people would think in their head that, by the way, you've done it 16 times, what is it there? What's there to study? Right? But I did that IELTS, we passed. Not only did we pass, from there, DK, thinking. Like Uncle Dinky was the one guy that helped. Because God, because if I had passed this IELTS just 5 years ago, a lot of things wouldn't have actually worked out. But when Uncle DK came here, he was like the John the Baptist for us to prepare the way for us to come, right? God used him in several aspects. And he's one guy that no matter how dire a situation is, he will just tell you, back home. That's the common thing, back home. Don't worry, it will click, right? So first, just as I love Ravi Zakar, I loved him so much, regardless of the scandal. He said, when God does not give you anything, it's because he has something better in store for you. Which is the same thing as everything work together for good for those who love God. One. Secondly, he also said something, it's like God is like a son. You cannot look at him, but without him, you cannot look at any other thing else. So we should also have that notion. We should have that notion that you can't look at the sun like that because that's how God is. But without the sun, there is nothing else that would work. So if not for God, even the photography, even the career development that I did in business analysis, all of those things wouldn't have worked in any way. So be of good cheer. One. Secondly, be of good cheer. Secondly, don't give up. Because by the way, you are going to face tribulation. I understand people who sing about not only sing. There's this one that this song that people will just change from in every difficulty. These problems will come. This problem will come. When they come, one, don't give up. And then another thing again is during this whole season, I was, just God was refining me, and this is the story of the refining fire, where the gold was kept refining and heating. Because there are so many things that can withstand. I don't think I would have been able to do that in the last 9 years. So it was still a process of refining that was helping me in a way to be able to withstand whatever difficulty that will come my way. So please, let's not give up. Let's trust in God. I mean, you have to trust in God. There was something that happened 2 days ago. 2 days ago, Uncle Dike gave me a referral for a job. I did the first interview. I did the second interview. I did the coffee chat. And I even got the text from the recruiter that, you know what, the manager liked you. And I waited for 6 weeks. Then I got the rejection 2 days ago. And it was the most painful thing. I think it was the most painful thing that happened to me. I got it. I mean, why? People that knew I did that, they were like, you know what, you've gotten the job. I deny, they would have just done that in the first or second day, but it took them 3 weeks to be able to tell me, you know what, we are not going forward with you. It was difficult. I did not like myself. But this is the point. I just shake the shackles and move on. You don't dwell on the past. I mean, during that exam, I would just pray to God, I know my problem is reading, help me with reading. And then I will still fail. But it's just that God has a plan. And number one, don't compete with anybody, just compete with yourself, because all of my friends are doing very well. Not only are they doing well, they're the ones that are even helping at this point. But then when you start looking, I mean, there are times I'm a human, I'll just start thinking, I think I would have gone far, I would have progressed more, but at this point, what is happening? When you start thinking of that, you will start feeling like, man, things are not working. Are you even okay? But I'll just tell myself, I thank God I'm not dead. I thank God that I am okay. And I know that things will fall in place. So please, let's not be discouraged. Let's love God and let's be productive while we wait.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You see, I thank you so much for even being very vulnerable today. You are really, really vulnerable in sharing your story, being very sincere. Thank you. I know that I can't pay you for this, but God will open doors, even concerning the waiting seasons you're in. And you said it all, that life is full of challenges, because that's the journey of molding and building and molding and building and walking us through where we are meant to be, right? There'll always be bottlenecks, there'll always be things to achieve. No matter, even if we achieve one thing and we start another journey, even if you decide to live a very simple life, there will all still be challenges. Even if you say, I don't want to do anything that'll bring me to the top, or do anything that I don't want to be in front of anybody, even not being in front of someone, there will still be some challenges. So that's just the journey of living on earth, right? But I love what you said. Just be cheerful, be expectant, be ready to just brush things off, brush failure off, brush those obstacles, and just keep moving, because it's the mercy of God, right? And as long as you don't give up, when there is life, there's hope, and so much can really happen. Thank you so much, Barnabas. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you all so much for also showing up and just listening. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and all. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care. Thank you, Barnabas.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right,
Yeah,
I wish you the best. So.